For all the great things you've learned in university, they didn't teach you one thing, and that's how to be massively successful in your career and in your life. I'm Christian Piros, Senior Mentor and Coach at Elevanation, and I'm here to share with you those tools that weren't taught to you on how to be an effective, successful person and enjoy your life.
Christian Piros here with you.
Welcome back, everyone. Today I have a special guest for you here. Marco is a career coaching client of mine. He's also an international traveler and world champion bull rider. Marco, welcome to the channel.
Thank you very much, Christian. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks for joining. So a couple topics we wanted to talk about today are dealing with fears and frustration. Some of the conversations I had with Marco, we were talking about, how do you deal with fears? How do you deal with frustrations? How does that tie in with emotional health, and what's going on inside when you feel that anger? And Marco, would you like to say anything about that? How you came to this question and what you notice day to day?
I found myself in those kind of situations quite often. Depends if dealing with the friends, parents, girlfriends, and it's very easy to sometimes to fall inside these kind of emotions.
Right. So you're having a conversation with a friend or your parents, and what are you noticing? What's going on?
Sometimes during this conversation, it looks like someone is provoking you, or some bad sensation start to feeling inside you for some reasons that in that moment we don't really realize. And that's when I think we have to be ready to deal with that. Right.
Yeah, it's really annoying when someone's provoking you and trying to get under your skin, and especially with friends and family members, that can be a real issue that someone's, they know you really well, so maybe intentionally, maybe unintentionally, they're trying to provoke you, get a reaction out of you, and kind of push your buttons to maybe try and influence the situation, or maybe it's, there could be all kinds of different reasons for this. So what have you tried so far to stay calm, stay emotionally neutral?
Well, first of all, knowing our weakness. Knowing our weakness will be a powerful way to recognize when something is touching our inner weakness, our inner disturb.
Maybe let's talk about a couple of the techniques of dealing with someone who's trying to provoke you or trying to get under your skin. Because the way I see it is when that happens, even though the other person is maybe giving the impetus or the input, it's still my responsibility to stay calm and focused and deal with the situation in a rational and reasonable way. So the first step here is noticing when your emotions are elevated, right? You're noticing you're having the conversation and you're feeling this is bothering me, right?
Yeah.
So just even having that moment to say to yourself, I noticed that I'm feeling a little bit annoyed, or I notice I'm getting a little bit excited or a little bit frustrated with this situation. Just that, taking a moment to notice it, you can kind of remind yourself to now go through a sequence to stay in emotional stability. So that's step one. Make sense so far?
Makes sense. Mm-hmm. Makes sense, because we have to learn how to recognize something first of all. First to maybe find a solution for that.
Great. So second step, after you've recognized that there's a situation where you're getting emotionally affected, is to really come back to your body and begin a sequence to come back to emotional stability. That sequence to come back to emotional stability starts with your body, your physicality, because emotional dysregulation or emotional stability are really centered in the body. So a couple things. Take a breath. Just that breath for 30 seconds will help. You can also add a pause at the exhale of your breath or after the inhale of your breath, and hold your breath just for 5 or 10 seconds to really slow things down. This will bring your whole autonomic nervous system into a different mode and help you get back to a sense of balance and more calm. Have you ever tried something like that with breathing exercises or breathing meditation?
Yeah, especially after listening from you, these kind of options, these kind of solutions, I recognize it's very useful to focus on ourselves in that moment and in that situation. Focus on our sensation, what we're feeling, to forget this kind of bothering that can occur in our inner.
Yeah, and it can be, understandably, it can be really intense sometimes, especially in the beginning before you built these skills. So after you build this skill set, it will get easier and easier with time. I promise you. So just give yourself patience and that kind of self-love. It's kind of building your own inner coach, your own internal personal coach to guide you in these kind of challenging situations. So now you've adjusted your breathing, you've come to be present in your body, and you may have an initial impulse. That initial impulse might be something like, maybe say something nasty to them. It might be, oh, I want to hit them. It might be to run away. Whatever that initial impulse is, give it a quick sanity check. For example, if the impulse is to hit somebody, unless you're acting in self-defense, it's probably wrong, right? We don't want to go around hitting people. So those kind of impulses, though we all might have them from time to time with people we're annoyed with, yeah, we want to check that and say, hey, that's not a reasonable reaction. Check a couple reactions and see what's reasonable. It might be reasonable to say, hey, I'd love to talk with you about this at a later point. Let me call you tomorrow, or let me come by tomorrow. It's perfectly okay to always excuse yourself from a situation. Sorry, I gotta go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. Just for 5 minutes in the bathroom, you can recompose yourself, recenter yourself, if indeed the problem is that urgent. Otherwise, you're an adult. You can always leave a situation that's too much for you right now and recompose yourself to address it in a healthy way at a later point. When your emotions are acting up, especially in the beginning of learning healthy emotional processing, it's going to take a little bit of time. And by excusing yourself, you're giving yourself the space to build a skill. As well, the emotions might be coming from a couple of different places, right? I think we talked about this, that the emotions might be coming from right here, right now, but it might be relating to some kind of past relationship, maybe a past personal relationship, a previous friendship, something in childhood, family, school, whatever. And it can take a little time to figure out, where's it coming from? Is it actually the present moment that's bothering me, or is it something that some school buddy did to me, back in 3rd grade?
Absolutely, and that is a situation when it's also important to recognize the importance of this fear, of this bothering, of this preoccupation.
Exactly. Next, I'd like to mention how this fits into your personal growth. When you have healthy emotional processing, it gives you focus, and you can have better relationship with yourself and a better relationship with other people, which makes you seem like a happier, more reasonable, and more mature person. So you can be more effective in your communications, be more effective at work, be more effective in your relationships, and have more fun in your life because you're able to steer your emotions when you're seeing that things are going a little bit out of whack. Marco, any questions so far?
How is this difference between dealing for something from the past, as we were talking before, or dealing for a fear or worries that we have in the moment, in the present? Which is the situation between?
Right, that's a good question. So typically when something like this happens, you'll see that if after the event, the emotion is lasting more than 5 minutes, that it's really like drilling down inside, and maybe it's like preoccupying you, or it's, making you think about it for a long time during the day, it's probably something from the past. Most emotions that are having to do with something in the present moment, we can usually process those in about 5 minutes when we just give it the space. Okay, I'm feeling happy, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling annoyed. Breathe through it for 5 minutes. Normally, most feelings like that should go away for normal day-to-day kind of events. But if it's something that's triggering something from your past, you'll notice, okay, you're thinking about it for hours, then that's something that's most likely a trigger from your past and requires a little bit of deeper reflection to process and let go of.
How do I process a fear?
Processing a fear takes a few different steps. I suggest a few different things. The first one is to take some time by yourself and write about it. Just take a piece of notebook, paper, just write down how much you want to, maybe even 30 seconds, maybe a minute, maybe 5 minutes, maybe half hour. It's all up to you, what's comfortable for you on writing on that topic. You might do it in one sitting, you might do it over several days or a week, and I really suggest to do it with pen and paper, because when you're writing about something with pen and paper, it's more engaging for your brain, so you're getting different results. How is it for you to write about something, to be writing about emotions or be writing about an experience?
Recently was very helpful, and I recognize that the difference between doing that or not doing that is huge. You can definitely see that processing a fear or a worries is very useful to recognize it in all his aspect, in all her aspect. And yes, it's helping you to know more yourself and know more how to deal with that what to do and what expecting from the future and from your next reactions.
Great. So after you've gotten through the writing step, the next step is to check in the body, because very often these kind of fears or apprehensions have a connection physically in the body. It could be in your stomach, could be in your leg, could be in your shoulder, your neck. So just close your eyes for a minute, scan your body, and see if you're noticing anything. Marco, would you like to try that for a second? Just scan your body and see if you're noticing anything in respect to a recent frustration.
I can take an example. For example, I wasn't able to speak with a person that is related to me in a way I would make her comfortable or he comfortable. And this is, of course, bothering us because sometimes we think it's our responsibility, to make people feel good.
Yeah.
And if this is not happening, we always think, or sometimes we think it's also our fault.
Yeah, that's crazy, right? When someone isn't feeling well and we feel the desire or the need to make them feel well, and it's okay to say, you know what, I'm responsible for my feelings. I'm responsible to be respectful for other people, but I'm not responsible for their feelings. Even in being respectful and a decent human being with other people, some other people might get upset. I mean, imagine I go to work and I bring ice cream for everybody. And out of the 30 people at the office, there's going to be probably one person who's offended by the thought of ice cream. Maybe they're trying to lose weight. Maybe they've had maybe ice cream is a trigger for them. Maybe it reminds them of, some asshole grandparent, and they're going to be mad at me for offering ice cream. They might not say anything, but maybe I notice, okay, they're all, okay, sorry, I offer you ice cream. But even when we have good intentions, some other people might get upset, but that's not our responsibility. Our responsibility is to be clear with myself, be responsible for my own actions, feelings, in a respectful way for myself and respectful towards other people. So after you've done that writing and scanning the body for any trapped feelings, now it's time to release and let them go. And there's a few different ways to do that. You can do that with some breathing, you can do it with some meditation, or you can do it with some movement. That might be walking, yoga, stretching. There's a few different options. We're not going to go into a whole lot of detail right here today, but just to give you an idea that it requires both the mental process and the physical process of letting these things out of your body. Marco, we also talked a little bit about self-control under stress. How is that for you right now?
I can recognize that sometimes it's could be very uncomfortable to be under stress and be obligated to take a decision, especially in a short amount of time. And it's very important for me to recognize when this is happening and to first think about myself, to my condition, before of fixing the situation, if it's possible for me.
Right, exactly. So I don't know if you guys have ever gone through that someone contacts you and asks you for a decision right away on something, and maybe it's too much for you right now, too much is going on, or the decision itself is a big, major decision. So I'm glad you're able to take the time and give yourself the space, say, okay, I need a day to think about this, or I need 3 days to think about this. It's always okay to say, sorry, I can't answer you right now. I'll call you back tomorrow. And maybe they'll insist, no, I need an answer right now. Say, look, I'm sorry, I can't answer right now. I have to call you back tomorrow, period. And that's totally okay. You're a grown person now. It's all right to do that.
Yeah, because sometimes if we act so fast or without thinking, most of the time we act in a way that is not the best.
Yeah, exactly.
How we deal with an environment that recognizes us as beginners, even if we have the skills and the correct preparation and the correct maturity to deal with something.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy, right? Because when we go into a new job, a new situation, a new social group, and actually it's funny, it doesn't matter if we're 22 or 42 or 62, it's normal to feel a little bit of discomfort in a new social setting, and that's part of our wiring as human beings. That message is just telling us, hey, you're amongst a new group of people, you need to be careful a little bit to observe kind of how this group operates, so you can be a good member of the team, be a good member of the group, and that takes time it's kind of an automatic process for most people, for your nervous system to kind of observe how the group interacts with each other, what are kind of the rules of this group, and to learn and integrate with the group. For example, some groups might be very, fun playing, jovial, silly, goofy, And if that's the kind of group you're in, you want to play along and be a good member of the group. Might be another environment where they're very serious, they're very quiet, they don't joke around so much, they're very, because of the nature of the business, maybe it's a more serious environment. And obviously, well, maybe you want to be, maybe you do want to be a joker, but most people might just want to like play along with the standard rule book and also play along in the default settings of the group. And also figuring out how to be a member of the group while also being true to yourself. And there's always a little bit of compromise involved there. But what it comes down to, I think, is when you're entering a new environment is to really find somebody to connect with. It might be in the first couple weeks, a member of that group that you are building a connection with and you feel you can trust them, and you can ask them a couple questions. Hey, how long have you been here? I'd really love this group. I'd like to be a great member of the team here. Any suggestions you have for me on how I can contribute, how I can be a good member of this group? Or you could find somebody outside the group, like a trusted friend, a family member, a mentor, a coach, someone who can give you some feedback for the situation from kind of a more objective level, because it's normal for us to have fears. Again, this can happen at any age. A quick conversation with the right person is like magic, and I'm sure you've experienced that before.
Christian, before we talk about frustration and bad thoughts or bad sensation that could lead us to act in a way we are not expecting, but we have so many more emotions in ourselves. How it's possible for us to not be slave of our emotion, but to recognize them and to try to use them in a good way for us?
Yeah, it's a good challenge, because I had trouble with this also myself for some years. It's when emotions aren't regulated or they aren't balanced, they're going to push us in ways that we don't want or aren't really healthy for that. So we don't want to be like necessarily a cold, calculating piece of stone, but we want to have our emotions in balance so they're working for us and not against us. And I'll give you an example from my life. If I wake up in the morning and I notice, hey, I didn't sleep well last night. I slept horribly, and I know I'm usually going to be in a bad mood if I didn't sleep well. And if I'm going in a bad mood around the day, I'm going to be overreacting to everybody. So I have to remind myself that, hey, I didn't sleep well today. I'm in a bad mood. My emotions are going to be misaligned today. So for example, if I'm lacking sleep, I go to the supermarket, I'm in a bad mood, and somebody bumps me by accident in the supermarket, I'm going to feel really upset. I'm going to feel really, oh, those people. But I need to realize, oh yeah, I didn't sleep tonight. I'm in a bad mood. Just kind of ignore my emotions today. It'll be fine. Maybe I'll take a nap in the afternoon, or just ignore everything until the next day. And then I can keep those emotions in check because I know that's where I am today. Another time, I might be in a completely balanced state. I've slept well, I've eaten well, I'm having a good day. Something happens at work and I'm feeling like offended. But because it's with a colleague at work, I might want to take time to think about this. So I might want to take 5 minutes to write a couple notes down. I might want to talk with a friend in the evening for 5 minutes, talk with someone who works in the same kind of business, say, hey, Mike, I know what have you done in this situation when this happens to you at work? How did you deal with it? Get some feedback from a colleague. And this will help me to process my emotions and to be more objective about how I do it. And the more I practice this on a day-to-day basis, noticing, when my emotions are out of whack, noticing when I'm dealing with a new situation that my emotions aren't trained for yet, or things are coming up for me, that by doing a little bit of work myself and some work with other people, like both those, the internal work with another person, it really helps to process everything. And that way I'm learning to balance my emotional life with my objective, rational side. And that way I'm no longer a slave to my emotions. That way I'm choosing my future, because when I'm doing my goal setting, dream setting, vision boards, those kind of things, I'm being clear about who I am as a person. I know, for example, I've had this dream for 2 years and I've been writing about it, every month in my journal. Okay, then I know it's probably a dream that I need to go and check out, right? And that doesn't mean that the dream is necessarily going to go all the way through, but I need to follow it up, right? For example, I had the dream one time to be a pilot. And I was thinking about it for a couple of years before I took action. I was like, okay, I want to be a pilot, And I finally went, started going for lessons, talking to pilots, meeting with people. And I realized this is a cool job. It's really fantastic, but it's actually not right for me. It would be great as a hobby for me, but as like a full-time job flying people, I didn't think it would be a fit for me. But I realized by like going through all that, I'm glad I did it because I don't have any lingering doubts in the back of my mind. Oh, I should have been a pilot. Oh, I should have gone for training, because I know by doing all those efforts and going through those lessons at the flight school, okay, this isn't really a good match for me. So does that make some sense? Is that helping out?
Makes some sense. So the second step is after we recognize why something happened, why we feel an emotion inside ourselves, and after we process it in the different way you listed, but the question is, how can I actually try to feel better? Because everybody wants to feel better, of course, but for example, if we have to deal with sadness or to pain, and of course after processing it, what we are expecting is to feel in a better way.
That's a good question. It's like how to, after you're feeling bad about something, how do you get to feeling good and happy again? And that's a question really about balance. And it may be preparing ahead of time. So I kind of need to be proactive in my life so that, in the course of a week or a month, I'm making sure I'm balancing a few different things, that I'm taking care of myself, right? I'm getting good sleep. I'm waking up hopefully without using my alarm. It's important to wake up naturally. That I'm doing some kind of self-care routine every day, whether it's half an hour or an hour, just that process of taking a shower, taking some time with myself. You'll notice animals like cats, dogs, whatever animals, other mammals that you see around, they spend a lot of time just taking care of themselves. And we're mammals too, right? We need to take care of ourselves and give ourselves that love and attention and care every day for whatever amount is appropriate for us, so we're feeling good. And after that self-care, the other things like fitness, time with friends, time doing fun activities, whether it's, like something like playing volleyball or, playing a little bit of video games or something that's balanced activity that you enjoy, that's got to be in your schedule every week. Because if you leave that out, if you say, okay, right now I need to cram and study, and if your thing is getting out of balance and you're losing the spectrum of things, you need to be a whole, balanced human being, then it's going to push you into more stress and more emotional overreactivity, because as that stress builds up and is not getting released, it has hormonal effects, cortisol, and so on. That gets messy. So be proactive is my biggest advice there. Make sure your routines are in balance, and that way, when you're ready to do something, at work or when you're doing something for studies and it's getting stressful, you have more capacity to deal with it. And then you say, okay, you know what, I can deal with this for an hour. I do as much as I can in 1 hour. And tonight I'm going to have dinner with my friends and I'm going to forget about it for a few hours. And that's okay. Just beware that you're not using, any kind of substances to try and compensate. Some people get into substances for compensating for those kinds of feelings, and that can be dangerous. So be careful with substances. Make sure that they're used sparingly, and just keep your life proactively in balance. Then you have plenty of capacity to deal with those situations in an effective way. Reflect on it yourself and reflect on it with a friend or a mentor.
Sure.
Marco, thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you, Christian. It was a pleasure to be here.
Real pleasure. Thank you all so much for being here. Any thoughts, feedback, questions, comments, good or bad, I'd love to hear it from you. That really helps me, helps the channel. And if there was something good you enjoyed in the video today, please do share it with a friend. Please do subscribe to the channel, because that's really helpful for me to grow the channel, help more people like you, and reach more people so that everyone can be having more success and living a better, happier life. Wish you all the best. Take care. From France, right?
No, I'm from. This is a blasphemy. I'm Team Fiat, Lamborghini, and Ferrari.
Fiat.
Come on, it's
That's
cheap.
the Fiat.
It's cheaper.
Cheaper, probably, for the next 5 years. For the next, how many years? For the next 10 years. We'll take a break.
This is the final test.
Silence. This is the final test.